So let's actually discuss this big topic called money. Now let me see if I can actually gather my thoughts a little bit here, because this is such a huge topic. And I would like to share with you something that is simple. So a simple point of view on money, a simple kind of spiritual and secure point of view. Because of course we all have the typical point of view on money, about saving it and having a job and making it and investing it maybe and worrying about it all the time and worrying about it running out, not spending too much and so on. Like we all have the usual ideas about money. But our usual ideas about money are not very helpful at giving us peace about this subject about money, right? So the classic, the typical point of view doesn't allow for us to feel at peace inside when it comes to this area. And that's really what I've come to see, that true security is true financial security in this case. I mean, being a secure person, a secure being, is a big subject, and now we're looking at how can we be secure in relationship with money. We can also be secure in relationship with our love life or with our partner. We can be secure in relationship with our health and body. We can be secure in relationship to life overall. But the question here is, how can we be secure in relationship to money? Okay? And the thing about true financial security is that is not found outside, because we think we're going to be financially secure when our bank account reflects that we have enough money. And what is enough money? That's a huge question. That's a very relative and huge question. Nobody really knows what enough money is. And we can actually define a kind of spiritual point of view on what enough money is. But it's not found outside. That's not where our security, our financial security is actually found. It's not found in our bank account. So what I've come to see is just the opposite, actually, is that true financial security is found inside, right inside. It is found in actually the absence of financial insecurity. And insecurity is a state of not feeling safe in relation to something. So when we let go of this sense of feeling insecure about money, so when that goes away, what remains is actually a sense of financial security. So that's how you actually become secure financially. It's not by amassing a huge amount of money or a certain amount of money in your bank account, or having all kinds of assets or objects or things that you can rely upon financially. It's actually by dissolving a lot of the insecurity that relates to money. Think of people that are maybe poor but very generous and peaceful relating to money, that they can help you out, they can feed you, they can give you what they have, and they don't worry about it because they know that money will come. It will come. When there will be need for money, life will give you money. God will give them money. So that's a very different kind of person that maybe doesn't have a lot of financial means, but is very peaceful, trusting of life, financially secure, internally financially secure, and very generous. And that's a very different kind of person, a very different relationship with money, and a very different kind of inner state. It's really the absence of worry relating to money. Now compare that to someone who maybe has a couple of millions, or has a couple of hundreds of thousands of dollars, or just has a lot of money, or has money, let's say, has a steady job and they're well paid and so on. So that person, even though they may have money, or a lot of money even, they may be actually very selfish and self-centered and stingy with money and kind of worried about money all the time. Where will money come from? How am I going to pay the rent? Constantly thinking about how to make new money, more money, how to save it, invest it, and so on. That's a very different state, inner state, and actually a relationship with money. So think of these two people as a pretty good example of what it means to be peaceful in relationship with money, even though you don't have a lot of it. And to have a lot of it and actually not be peaceful, and not be very generous, and be constantly worried about it. Right? These are two kinds of extremes. You don't have to be in any of these two extremes to not have any money, or to have very little, or to have a lot and be very worried. You can have a lot and be very peaceful, and you can have very little and be very stressed and anxious as well. So the idea here is that for us to really come to a place of a healthy relationship with this subject and topic, we need to understand that our peace is not going to be found in a certain amount of money, and it's really not going to be found externally. Our peace is going to come from a correct understanding of this topic, a sense of awareness or awareness about how money really works and how it really comes into our life. So, to share a story with you, I was walking recently near a river, a small river that's running in the city I live in, and it just rained a few days before, so the river was pretty abundant with water, so it was pretty full. And usually it's not. Usually it's pretty, dry, and there's very little water there. And when I saw that, this insight kind of came into my mind that, when it rains, there is water. And that stuck with me, right? So when it rains, there is water. And that really sums up a lot of my perspective on money at this point. Because we have money when money comes into our life. Yeah, I know this may sound very strange to hear and understand, but it's like we have money, there is water when it rains. So when it rains, when money comes into our life, we have money. Again, very strange, but it's as simple as that. And when there is a need for rain, for water, there will be rain. But it's as simple as it gets. That when it rains, there's money. When there isn't money, it's because it didn't rain yet. And there wasn't the need for it yet. So, to tell you another story, actually, I was just having a coffee today. And when I went to pay, the barista was already preparing for me to pay by card. So I said, no, I'm going to pay with cash. So I paid with cash, and she says, yeah, sorry, I'm used that you're usually paying by card. And I smiled, and I said, well, yeah, but right now the cards are empty. Which is the truth. Like the few cards that I have are empty now. They're actually empty. So I can only pay by cash the remaining cash that is left in my wallet. So it didn't rain right now. There's no water. So when it will rain, there will be water. And now there is no water. At least for now, in this moment. So even though there's very little money in my bank account and in my life right now, there's a lot of peace about it. And that's what feeling secure about money is. Right? It's not having it outside that you feel secure, because you will never feel secure by having it outside. Because you can always worry about it, right? You can always worry about where the next amount of money will come from, or worry about making, huge payments for things. Worry about losing it, having it now but not having it later, running out of it. That's not what feeling secure about money is. So this is a distinction between external financial security and internal financial security, right? And what I'm trying to share with you here is that it's the internal one that really matters, right? And it's the internal one that is the true security. And when we have this financial security internally, an amazing thing happens. What happens is that we gain the possibility, we access the possibility of authentic money, of making money authentically, of not sacrificing ourselves for money, not abusing ourselves for money. Because when you're doing any kind of work that you're not excited to do, but you do it because you need to make the money, what you're really doing, and it took me a while to realize that, a very long time, what you're really doing is you're abusing yourself for money. So you don't want to do it, but you make yourself do it. That's self-abuse. Whenever you're doing something you don't feel like doing, you don't want to do, you don't naturally want to do, you're abusing yourself. The simplest example is to correlate this with sex, with a physical experience. It's like, if you don't feel like having sex with your partner, but you make yourself do it, you're abusing yourself, right? Obviously, if they are trying to have sex with you when you don't feel like doing it, they are abusing you, which is often known as a bad thing, right? It's as a terrible thing to happen. But we don't think the same way, because we haven't realized yet that even when we choose to do something when we don't feel like doing it, in that case it's a more subtle form of abuse. So that's with the sexual experience, and I give that example because it's a very simple way to get it, to understand that it's abuse. It's abuse. Either they're abusing me or I'm abusing myself. Now, in our society, maybe decades or hundreds of years ago, or in some cultures, a man forcing himself on a woman because he felt like having sex with her may have seemed like a normal thing to do. And it was normal in that culture. It's like, so what? Like, yeah, I want to have sex, so of course I'm going to do it. What's the problem here? So it was normal at some point in our society, in certain cultures, to abuse someone sexually. Now, obviously, it's not, because we have matured out of that level of awareness. However, in our society, in our capitalistic society that is still immature, we have not come to see that when we abuse ourselves for money, it's the same thing. When you don't feel like going to work, when you don't feel like doing a certain kind of job, yet you still do it because, well, you have to pay your bills, which is understandable. We all have to pay the bills because that's how, we share value with each other. But money can also be made in a non-abusive way, just like having sex can be done in a non-abusive way, right? In a loving relationship with two people that actually feel like having it. It's a pleasurable experience. The same thing with money. It can be a pleasurable experience. It can be a satisfying experience. To do something that you're excited about because it reflects your passion and your skills and what you love to do, what you're fascinated with, what you're interested in. So you exercise your passion and fascination about something. Could be cooking, could be, being a lawyer even, or could be being a doctor or helping people. We all have various kinds of interests and skills and creative capacities that are true to us and aligned with us. And when we use those, we get to contribute and therefore be paid for that. Right? We are valuable to others, and that's how they exchange, money as a form of value with us. So the right relationship with money is when we make it in an aligned way, right? In a way that we're excited to do. We just haven't yet come, as a society at least, to that level of awareness and maturity where we no longer tolerate abusing ourselves, right? Sacrificing ourselves for money. So this ties in with our level of financial security, right? Internal security. Because if we are internally insecure, right? Attitudinally speaking, we are insecure about money. We are going to be much more prone and motivated, you could say, to abuse ourselves, to do things we don't want to do for money. However, when we come, and again, this is part of that paradigm of financial security is outside, and internally I'm very worried about it, therefore I'm insecure about money. I'm financially insecure, and I think security is outside, so I'm gonna sacrifice myself to get that. So I'm gonna do what I can to get that money, to make the money, right? Or to just get it, because we can do it in all kinds of shady ways. But so yeah, we either sacrifice ourselves or sacrifice others by manipulating and lying and cheating and all kinds of criminal activities to get the money, because again, we think security is found outside. Financial security we're discussing here, when actually it's really found inside. And we're going to discuss this in a moment more specifically, but inside where? Inside in the awareness that money comes in when it's needed, that life takes care of itself. There's a way for money to come into your life always, and we just need to be aware of that. So when that becomes more and more clear to us, we develop that sense of financial security inside, and therefore it kind of stops making sense for us to sacrifice ourselves, right? Because if you know that life takes care of you, that God takes care of you, sometimes I define God actually as the great organizing dynamic, the greater intelligence of life. So let's say that the great organizing dynamic knows what you need, and it's always trying to organize everything that you need to keep moving forward in your journey as a person, as a soul, you could say. Because we're not really separate. I mean, I'm not going to go too much into that kind of non-dual and spiritual and metaphysical direction, because it takes a lot more to discuss. But simply put, we're not separate from God. So in a sense, God is helping itself. Or life is helping itself by helping you, because you're not separate from it. You know, the Hindu Vedantic teachings put it very simply that God is everything. The Brahman is everything. It's the essence of everything, and we are an expression of it. So anyway, without even, I mean, you could be a very devoted Christian as well, and you don't need to know all this other spiritual stuff. You can just develop a very simple and pure relationship with God as we know it in Christianity. And I've known many, because I was raised as a Christian, so I've known many people who are very peaceful and relaxed regarding money, because they trust God, right? They trust that when they will need it, it will be there. It doesn't mean that we don't do anything. What it does mean is that we don't do anything that is abusive toward ourselves or others. So we don't force ourselves to do things, because if we're secure, right? Like if we have come to a point of clarity that life takes care of itself, then it stops making sense for us to abuse ourselves for anything, for our relationship or for people's validation or for money as well. These are different kinds of security, right, that relate to people, relationships, and in this video specifically we're talking about being secure in relationship to money. So when we're secure and we trust that life delivers, life takes care of itself, it no longer makes sense to abuse ourselves, right? And we finally access the ability to make money joyfully, what I call joyful money. So to joyfully made, so we make it joyfully, and joyfully paid. We give it away joyfully. For charity sometimes, for causes, for people who need it. Of course, wisely, but we can be generous and we can be we can be calm and relaxed about it. So when we become secure, that's when we access this ability to make and have joyful money. So the money that comes into our life is made joyfully, what is given by other people joyfully to us. And we give it joyfully. Because, you know, a healthy relationship with money has to do with us actually being, like life takes care of itself. Life, let's say, pours money into your life as much as you need, when you need it, sometimes before you need it for what you will need next, the expenses you're going to have, which I've been observing a lot in my life. So it pours money into our life, kind of like a river, and we pour it out, like we give it away, we send it in the next direction where it needs to go. So a healthy relationship with money, a secure relationship with money, is not a very stingy one and worried and like afraid to give it, to spend it wisely, of course, and joyfully. But it is one where money comes into our life and it can go out. And we're kind of like a vessel for money to flow through, more than to hold on to it. Right? Kind of like Jesus says that, look at the birds. They don't worry about anything. I mean, I'm paraphrasing, of course. But look at the birds in the sky. They don't worry what they will eat next. Look at the flowers. They grow without worrying about anything. God gives them what they need, takes care of them. So imagine that that's actually the reality, that life takes care of itself. And you can actually begin to access that sense of security inside. And security really is found inside in the awareness, right? Where does security, inner security, come from relating money? It comes from the awareness that life takes care of itself. When there's need for rain, rain comes. When there's rain, there is water. When there's need for money, money comes. And when it comes, there is money. So that's where security comes from developing this awareness, and therefore letting go of the insecurity. And insecurity really comes from a misguided point of view and understanding that relates to money. Right? We have a lot of misunderstandings relating money. So from those misunderstandings, they are not right understandings, they are misunderstandings, they are misguided ideas that we have picked up, of course, from our collective view of money, and from our parents and from people around us, of course. And those misunderstandings make us very insecure. So as we release those through clarity, and as we increase the awareness, right, that life takes care of itself, that God takes care of itself as us, and there are ways for money to come into your life naturally and pleasantly, joyfully, enjoyably, not through sacrifice. So as we increase that awareness, we become secure. And we, again, access that ability to make money joyfully and to feel at peace regarding this topic. So let's see if there's something else I want to share with you relating this. Yeah, I guess I can share a bit about my experience with this. So the thing is that I haven't made any money for the last 3 years. I'm 31 now, so the last 3 years or so. 3 years ago, I ended my coaching career. I was coaching men on relationships. So helping them become secure in relationship with their partner, right? To not be insecure, because insecurity ruins those relationships. When they are insecure about losing their partner, about being good enough for their partner, right? And are they needy to have her in their life, they are very needy. They become clingy and suffocating. So that's what I've come to see as the number one problem with relationships. It's our insecure mindset relating relationships. It's what ruins relationships. So I was helping men overcome that insecurity, right? And overcome their misunderstandings that have to do with love and relationships, and increase the clarity that there's no need to worry about relationships, because again, relationships can function naturally and harmoniously when two people are aligned. So again, that's a big topic, and we're not going to go there right now, but I was doing that kind of work, and at some point I did it for a couple of years, and I was making money doing that, and I was enjoying it. So it was a joyful experience for me to do that, to coach men on that topic. But then I eventually started being bored and drained by doing that kind of work. It was no longer joyful, so I had to end it, even though it was quite successful actually, and it was getting more and more successful at the point where I actually let it go. So that was a huge lesson for me, that you can, and confirmation for me, and step for me, a bold step, you could say, courageous decision to let go of something that was financially successful. It used to be enjoyable, but it no longer was. So it was very courageous of me to let it go and to make room for what is next in my life, right? And I had some savings, and I was living from those savings for a couple of years, for 2 years. And then they were basically running out. But as I was running out of that money, a lot of insecurity, month to month, right? Every month, I was feeling more and more insecure, and a lot of insecurity was coming out. And of course, I had to sit with it and let it come up and out, like I shared in a previous video, letting insecurity come up and out. So whenever I would be worried about money, I would sit down and let myself freak out a bit or a lot about it, and that's when insecurity comes out of you. Plus, I was increasing my clarity about life taking care of itself through different books and speakers and teachers and so on, and through my own experience, paying attention on, in my life, how money always was there and found ways to come into my life when it was needed, and before I even knew that I was going to need it, because what followed were a few months or years of higher expenses, which I couldn't predict, yet money was there. So again, as I was running out of my savings, a lot of insecurity was coming up, and I was sitting with it and letting it go out. And increasing my clarity that life takes care of itself. And then the moment when I've run out of money, it was exactly, it's crazy that I started actually observing the truth of this clarity and the fact that life takes care of itself. I was amazed to observe that, because I started seeing all these synchronicities and how life takes care of itself. So I've actually run out of money exactly a few days before my birthday. And because it was my birthday, my mother volunteered to give me some money. Not a lot, just a little bit of money, right? For a month or two. So that it was my birthday gift. I didn't have to ask for it. It just happened, right? But just observe the synchronicity that I've run out of my savings that I've lived from for 2 years, because I don't have a lot of expenses. So I run out of money exactly before my birthday. Not a few months before or a few months later, exactly before. And then my mother volunteers to give me some money for a few months, basically. And what followed is a whole year of me never asking for money and always receiving it. Sometimes from my mother again, other times from other people, other friends and relatives. But again, I've never asked for it. It always came in. It was always volunteered. And it was always, whenever I would receive a new amount of money and I would basically run out of it, just a day or two, or exactly when I would run out of it, a new amount would come in. Someone would volunteer. And then again, that money would run out in a month or two, and again, exactly when I needed it, without asking, it would come in again. So this is an example. It's not just my life, because I have all these people who care. And I'm grateful for that, of course. But that's a principle. That's not an exception. That's a general principle. There's actually a book by a guy called George Miller, a German guy who lived 150 years ago, and he lived exactly the same way. And he has a whole book where it's his journals, where he shares how he was just praying to God, and whenever he had needs for money, he would pray to God, not ask for money from people. And somehow money would come into his life. He would be offered a job, or he would. Some people would donate to him, or some people would give him food for him and his wife. And eventually, he actually developed such trust in God's ability to provide that he started actually an orphanage with a couple of people, with a couple of kids. And he would never ask from other people to give him money. And he would constantly receive it. So he would only pray, he'd only ask God basically, and pray to God for what he needs, for the money he needs to take care of himself and his daughter, and then the kids that he was having in his care. And eventually he scaled that work to such a degree that he built a whole orphanage house for 400 people. And then he built another orphanage house for other 400 people. So eventually, and this work, his work, which he shares in his book, lasted for a couple of decades, actually, for his whole life, actually, from when he was about 30 or something, till he was over 60, at least that I know of, until he died, actually. So his philosophy was that I'm gonna trust the God of the Bible, who promises to us that we don't need to worry about our necessities, and everything that we need we can ask him and he will give us. That was his philosophy, that I'm not gonna ask people, I'm gonna ask God, and he will inspire the right people to send in the money that God considers that I need. So he will move people's hearts to share. And this worked not just for him, but for him and the hundreds of people that he was taking care of, and the many people that were helping him take care of the kids, right? This is a whole thing. And I've also heard of Mother Teresa. Someone asked her, what's her? So Mother Teresa basically had many orphanages, right? And there were like thousands of children and people in her care, so to say, in different countries around the world. And there were millions of dollars expenses, like yearly expenses that her work was requiring. And again, this was also for many years. And someone asked her, what is her fundraising advice? How does she raise money for her work? And she says, I pray. That's my fundraising strategy, prayer. So that's a very Christian perspective, and I love it and I agree with it. But that's just one way to look at it, because in my experience, in my view, even prayer is not necessary, because you can pray if you want, of course, but life takes care of itself whether you ask it or not. So it's of course, these two examples, being Christian, have interpreted this as I pray and God gives me. But in a different context, from a different kind of point of view, you could say that life takes care of itself and it knows what you need, and it's always delivering what you need. And that's been my experience. So, yeah, I guess what I'm trying to share with you here is that when there's rain, there's water. And when there is need for rain, there is rain, and there's water. So as we develop this awareness and this inner security relating money, and therefore we decrease and reduce and let go of the many misunderstandings related to money, that money doesn't grow on trees, or etc., that we pick up from our world. We again gain the possibility to make money in an authentic and enjoyable way, right? To make joyful money. Again, it doesn't mean that because you are secure about money, you don't do anything, because you're not going to be able to do nothing. You're still going to do a lot of things. You're just going to stop doing the abusive things. You're going to start sacrificing yourself for money. You're going to stop sacrificing yourself for money. That's what happens when we become secure and we have this awareness that life takes care of itself. We gain the ability to make money authentically. And these are the people who eventually may be rich if that's relevant for their life and part of their capacity, because they have certain skills and certain mastery for things and passion for things that they can contribute to the world, whether you're a musician or engineer or whatever you are, or a movie maker, or however you create value, because you're no longer insecure about money and sacrificing yourself for it. You can make it in an authentic way, right? And you can possibly have a lot of money. And be wealthy in this case, and actually happy. Or maybe not be wealthy, but be at peace and always know that you always have enough, and actually have that experience. And the thing is that the more we become aware of what I'm discussing here and start living that way, life constantly confirms this to us. It's very hard to gain the confirmation of this if you're always forcing yourself to get the money. But when you actually allow life to take care of itself in this area, in this money area of our life, and we see that even though we didn't know where money would come from the next day, the next month, it still does show up somehow. We're still inspired to do something where we find ways naturally. We find ourselves doing things that lead to money coming into our life. So I hope this doesn't sound too ridiculous and too extreme or naive, because in my experience it's not. But it of course it can sound like that. So my hope here is that, again, maybe, just maybe, this sparks a glimpse of insight for you. It's not going to shift your life right now. Possibly, maybe it does. But because it kind of opens a new way of thinking about money in your head that you may start exploring more and more. But again, maybe it just leaves you with a glimpse of insight, of a different way to relate to money and to think about money and to approach this area of your life. So thank you for watching, and I hope this was somewhat valuable to you. Cheers. Take care.